in Leesburg, Florida. And today I wanted to talk about a common condition which will affect young children, elderly adults, and everyone in between. And that's what we call a plantar wart. What a plantar wart is essentially it's a viral infection on the bottom of the foot. So plantar just means bottom of the foot, okay? And a wart is basically a verruca. What a verruca or a plantar wart is a viral infection caused by the human papilloma virus, HPV. And so what will happen is you'll have a growth on the bottom of your foot, and as opposed to warts like on your hand or things of that nature, basically with a plantar wart, it grows inward, and so you won't see it protruding. So you'll see a little bit of callus on the bottom of the foot, and you'll have pain and discomfort. And so what you'll do is we'll come in and we'll grab a scalpel blade and we'll shave the callus off to try and see, is it indeed a plantar wart? Because often there's another condition which is mistaken for plantar warts called an IPK, or an intractable plantar keratosis. And what an IPK is actually a clogged sweat gland which will cause the callus to form. Both look very similar to each other because the wart, like I said, will push and grow down from the top of the skin and cause pain, but the same thing happens with the IPK. Now the difference is with a plantar wart, if we do surgery to remove it, we don't violate a structure on the bottom called the basement membrane. So when we remove a plantar wart, it won't cause scarring or a painful scar. When we deal with an IPK, often we'll trim the callus down. We'll find that indeed it's not a plantar wart, and it will just tend to come back over and over and over again. And the IPKs, or the intractable plantar keratoses, are located usually underneath a weight-bearing surface on the bottom of the foot, underneath the metatarsal heads, or things of that nature. And all intractable means is hard to get rid of. Plantar, bottom of the foot. Keratosis, meaning callus. So it's a hard to get rid of callus on the bottom of the foot. And so they do tend to come back over and over and over again. Now, if when we trim the skin down, we start to see pinpoint bleeding, then we know that it is indeed a plantar wart. And often with a plantar wart, it will look kind of like cauliflower, to have a cauliflower-like appearance to the skin. And basically the other thing it will do is start to obscure the skin lines going through the wart. So the lines go around the wart as opposed to through it. So when we see that it's a plantar wart, we'll just numb up with the foot, and yes, it is a very painful injection. And then we'll take a scalpel blade and we'll cut around the wart and circumscribe the wart. So what we would do is make a cut around basically the wart, and then we scoop it out with a curette or an ice cream scoop. Now you can do cryo surgery to kill the wart. I usually recommend that people go to the dermatologist to have that done. You have to have a special machine that gets cold enough. The little freezy sprays in the drugstore, things of that nature, don't get cold enough. You really need CO2 cartridges or even a laser which will burn it off to get rid of the wart. So you can freeze the wart off, you can burn it off, or you can cut it out. Now some of the home remedies that we can try if you wanted to is to put on acid pads on the bottom of the foot, but you have to come in weekly to trim the callus away. And people really think of it more so as that it's the acid is killing the wart. It's not really killing the wart per se. It's bringing attention down to the area. So what I tell people is it's like there's a burglar in your house and you don't know that he's there. And a neighborhood kid all of a sudden throws a baseball through the window and the glass breaks. So you go out to your living room to see what the heck is going on, and you find this guy standing in the middle of your house, and so he runs away. Well, that's what's happening, is essentially with the plantar wart, your body is not recognizing that it's a virus there, and so it's not fighting it off. but when you put the acid on, it's causing trauma to the area, and so the body comes down to investigate, and it fights the virus off and clears basically the wart. So that's why some of the home remedies that everybody talks about, where you put duct tape across the bottom of the foot and all sorts of things like that, can work, because once again, you're causing mechanical trauma to the foot, so the body comes down to investigate, finds the wart, and it clears up. So there can be spontaneous resolution. It can go away, but I tell people if it's not going away, you want to come in and have us treat it, because they can spread. So they can spread anywhere. They are highly contagious, meaning if indeed this were a real plantar wart, we wouldn't really want to be touching or messing around with it, because we can spread it to our hands, we can spread it to other areas of our body, genitals, etc., and you don't want to do that. Any type of open cut in the skin will allow the virus to be introduced in. So that's where people say, well, how did I get it? Well, sometimes there'll be a little crack or a cut in your skin and you're out gardening or things of that nature, and you just pick it up out in the community. So when it spreads, it can encompass the whole bottom of the foot, the whole ball of the foot. When that happens, we have to actually take you in surgically, put you under, and then remove it, because there's just too much skin area involved. But when it's real small, we just put an injection in, numb up the bottom of the foot around the area, cut it out, scoop it out. It's one of the quickest, easiest ways to get rid of it. And then you just have to wait for it to heal. And it takes about a month for it to heal up. And like I said, because we haven't violated what we call the basement membrane, there won't be any type of scarring. Now, getting back to the intractable plantar keratosis, often when it comes back over and over and over again, people ask me, well, isn't there anything that you can do? And the answer is yes. We could cut out and biopsy the skin, send it off to verify that it's not a malignant melanoma or some sort of other growth. We do the same thing when we remove the plantar wart. I'll recommend sending it out for pathological examination in order to verify that it's not something else, that indeed it is a plantar wart. But the problem is when we biopsy the skin, we go through the basement membrane. And so because we're taking a small little plug out, it's going to scar up. And so you're going to get a scar on the top of the skin, which is on the bottom of the foot, and you're trading off a callus that is indented and hard to trim and get rid of for a flat callus that you can use a pumice stone, lotion, padding techniques, things of that nature to try to keep the callus from coming back. So scars can callus, and if they callus, you'll have to control it. And so that's where I tell people, just recognize that if you do cut it out, you will basically have a little tiny area of callus that can form, and you may need to control it. But it's much easier to control a flat callus than one that's indented. Now, with a plantar wart, like I said, that's very easy, very simple to get rid of, no scarring, no problem. So often people will come in and I say, well, the good news is it's not a wart, okay? The bad news is it's probably going to come back over and over and over again. It's an IPK. It's the intractable plantar keratosis, and if we remove it, you may be trading off one type of callus for another type of callus. Now, sometimes you can try freezing them off as well, just like with the plantar wart, but what you have to recognize is when you freeze it off, you're killing the skin, it can slough off, and you still could have scarring.